Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, regardless of where you're tuning in from. Happy holidays. This is Chris Torrence over at Optum for another episode of the semi-related podcast, which will actually be our last one of the calendar year. I'll double check with my marketing team, but hopefully that is the case because I think next week's going to be pretty quiet in terms of the work and professional front. So, what better way to wrap out the podcast season than having a guest that I think only does about 8 podcasts a day or a week. I'm not quite sure. But, without further ado, everybody knows Charlie. So, Charlie, welcome to the show. Charlie Saffro. For anyone in the world that may not have been under a rock for the last 30 years, then,
You,
here
Craig.
you are. Yeah.
I'm honored to be doing the finale for the year.
We are equally honored. So, thank you for taking time on the Friday before. How's your shopping going for, you get down to the wire or Amazon pretty much take care of everything?
Yeah, I'm like a big fan of e-commerce, especially this time of year. So, yeah, but I am also that person who like panics, and at the last minute, I'm like, what can come tomorrow morning? Like anything, what can I?
Anything, right? And I see, Charlie and I happen to be based in Chicago. So for us that were wishing for a white Christmas, those here in the greater Chicagoland, Midwest perhaps, got a little something. Nothing significant that should alter travel, but we knew, Charlie, coming into the holiday season that it was inevitable the cold weather would eventually set in. I think we got pretty spoiled the last couple seasons have been mild.
I
Right?
know. You just kind of wonder, like, is that the new normal, or because it's been a mild winter so
Yeah.
far. We haven't really had winter yet, but yeah, we've got some snow on the ground. Perfect timing for my middle son to get his driver's license.
Oh, is the test today?
Well, it was Tuesday. He passed,
Tuesday. Okay.
but
Pass
now
the
all he
written,
wants to
all the
do
above. Yeah.
all the above. He's got it, but all he wants to do is drive, and it's like now there's snow and the streets are slushy and slippery, and I'm
Your
like,
mom
oh,
and you and Chad may be like, yeah, let's let the plows do their thing, little
exactly.
melting. Yeah, yeah.
But then I'm like, oh, if I don't have to drive you, you're the
Yeah.
key.
Well, congratulations on that front. But I guess, again, I'm a dad as well, but my son's not quite of that age for a while. So
Mhm.
I mean, the stress that is associated with a driver's license it's a rite of passage.
Exactly.
But it's also presents, I'm guessing, quite a bit of fear within the parental category, right? Like,
It's like so true. The minute you have kids, you basically just surrender sleeping, and like that is not a
yeah,
priority. And like, how old is your kid?
he's 7.
Seven.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so he was teething, and then he
yeah.
was wetting his bed, and then he's having bad dreams, and then they start driving, then they go to college. Like there's never a
It
time
just flies
that
by. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You're always checking Life 360. That's that's my jam.
Yeah. Well, look, are you, is the family staying local? Are you guys traveling for the holiday? I think you may have mentioned off camera a warmer destination, perhaps.
We're doing a little bit of both.
Okay.
So, I have a high school varsity basketball player, and there's always a big winter break tournament.
Attorneys.
So
Yeah.
we'll be driving to a school probably very far away for games at very odd hours. And then we're going to take a quick family trip down to Florida for a few nights
Hey,
over
hey.
years. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're doing that. And then I'm also at the beginning of the week doing something kind of crazy. I feel like you would enjoy it though, Chris. I am taking a solo trip, which
Hey,
I've
hey. Yeah.
you ever done that?
I think I did back in my earlier 20s.
Yeah. That work travel where you're just like alone, but like
Yeah, no, like a legitimate, like Lonely Planet kind of thing where it's like I just want to go have some like self-reflection time, and yeah, I commend it, but we're at my chapter in life right now, like it ain't happening.
getting
So the best I get is the work trip conference where it's like maybe I'll just stay a little extra in the following day and just
yeah,
meditate or whatever that looks like.
Goodness. No, it's exactly that. It's like I have 3 kids. I feel like I've been on like a treadmill at the highest speed for the last 2 years. And I really just want to like think, and never thought I would ever want to go alone. I'm actually taking my dog, so I won't be totally alone. But I don't want to bring a laptop or an iPad. Like I just
Just
want
get off the grid.
yeah,
Yeah.
get off the grid and disconnect and check in with my family once a day. So that's what I'm going to
Once a day. Yeah.
do. Right? That's what I'm going to do for a couple of days
And
before the
where are you going for? Any particular place you decided to go? Go
you
explore and self meditate.
have like a lot of criteria because I wanted to bring a dog. I wanted
Yes.
to have like outdoors for walks. I
Hmm.
wanted safety. So I didn't want to be like alone in a cabin in the woods. So I'm going somewhere in Wisconsin. Let's just say that.
Up north, as they say. Yeah.
Up north, just in case this airs and like some creep is following me. I,
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, I wasn't sure how that. I thought maybe you'd go somewhere that's could have been international, could have been, a warmer destination. But if you're going down to Florida,
no,
then you're going to check that box anyway, right?
I
So
get 3 nights. This is, but just like you said, like I never could have done anything like this, which is why I'm doing it over the holidays because no one needs me. So I'm like, let me just go and think.
you deserve it. Yeah, I like to think I deserve it, but I give my wife pretty much she gets first crack at all this, and
Yeah.
with my travel schedule when I am home, I think I feel the extra need to kind of be
Yeah.
present in that role. So she's
Okay.
the one that deserves the break, and she's not in the workforce. So I think that's kind of like she has the harder job. I'll be honest.
I could not agree more. But
Yeah.
maybe ask her if I don't know. As I say, ask her if she wants a solo trip. You might totally offend her. But I'm gonna put that out there for
Happy in the bed with some coffee and some Bravo Network by the fire. I think that's her idea of like the little bubble escape for a period. So I can handle that one. I'm good on that
perfect.
one.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, Charlie, you've had a big year, right? I think was your TED Talk earlier this year as
It
well.
was. It was.
Awesome.
Thank
You
you.
did great, by the way.
Thank you. It was in April. So
Okay.
that's behind me and kind of I don't know, just got a fire lit in me to do more speaking and to talk more about things I'm
Yeah.
passionate about. So I've done a lot of speaking this year, which I never thought I would enjoy, but I truly do. So it's exciting.
Yeah, well, I was going to say you're ubiquitous within this industry, right? Your name, your organization. So I think that, and maybe I'm a little biased because you and I go back a little bit, the Chicago connection. But I
Yep.
think I mean, it's phenomenal to witness what started is, for those that I'm not going to ask you to go to how'd you get in the industry. We talked about it, but I do know that, and I know with Chad and his earlier organization that you were kind of the jack of all trades and kind of eventually found your way into this role because you have an innate ability and a passion for helping people find opportunities relative to their career. And you have CS recruiting now. How long what's CS? What year are you going into in 25?
Um, technically year 15, which is
Teen.
crazy. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think I became an LLC in 2010, maybe like around this time, like right around the holidays. So maybe 14 full years of business, but 15 on the calendar. So, yeah, it's really
Done.
crazy to think. Let's just say it's been a third of my life.
Yeah. Well, you've played every card extremely well, and like I said, I think not only what I would say about Charlie is yes, you're going to be associated with CS, the recruiting side, but if there's ever anyone that wants to understand the power of building a personal brand, I think Charlie encapsulates that very well. Which, as I talk to younger people, and I'm sure you do too, they're always asking me how do I get out there, and well, networking is networking, so I'm always highly encouraging them to if
Yeah,
budgets permit and their employers are willing to give them exposure to trade shows and conferences and even local things here, like in Chicago, or wherever they happen to live, just to get out there.
yeah,
I think the overarching theme is, the cliche, right? Your network is your net worth.
totally.
True. But I
Uh-huh.
think also the personal brand component, right? Because no matter who you're in a little different position owning your own company, but for a lot of folks, especially in the startup for tech, that chances are in any startup capacity, you probably won't be your last job for a myriad of reasons. So, again, I think that, personal branding was something that until the social media phenomenon it was there, but limited to those that had exposure. And
Yeah,
now with the age of social and TikTok and YouTube, LinkedIn, you name it, right? You can be a creator in your own right. And I think it's interesting the dynamic of I know you're very pro personal brand for your own team, but it's interesting because in my earlier corporate years, right, I always felt there was a stigma associated with like, be cautious. And it was almost this undertone of like, we almost would prefer you not just fall in line.
right.
That's not your role. And Charlie, I kind of on that topic while we're at it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on? I'm sure you kind of encounter this, right?
Yeah.
What's your feedback for employers and employees when it comes to creating a personal brand?
I mean, my feedback is it's essential.
Yeah,
And I really for many years I didn't make an effort for probably the same reason nobody else makes an effort. Like, oh my God, it's narcissistic and a brand for me. Like, what do I have to offer? But this is the future, and this is how we are looking at each other as what you have a brand, whether you claim it or not. Like, I have perception of who Chris is, and I know your brand, so you might just not see it. So I think it's essential. I think on the topic of LinkedIn, took me a long time to start using my voice on there. I do some really thorough trainings with my team,
Mhm.
not only just to like set up their profile, and none of it's mandated, but it's like, here's the formula, here's 5 templates you could use. But we really do encourage them to be themselves. And so
Right.
when it comes to the posts, I think it's a fine line. Like, you're not wrong. My philosophy that's worked so far, knock on wood, is we hire really great people who are mature and they're adults and they follow my lead. Now my lead isn't always so great because sometimes it might have a swear word or whatever,
We're
but
human. We're human. Yeah.
yeah, we're human. But like they see what I'm posting, and
Yeah.
my message to them is like, if you can tie it, nobody wants to just see your, dog in your bed on LinkedIn unless there's a story that
Right.
you aren't feeling motivated and you couldn't get out of bed, but then your dog like whatever. And then now you're blowing up the world today. So like I'm like, just think about the audience, know that there will be haters.
As we've seen. Yeah.
As we've seen. But yeah, I mean, I have some people on my team that are really active and lots of people who have left our company that remain active. And like, I'm so
Yeah.
proud of that. Um, I'd say the biggest place that you can really brand yourself on LinkedIn, for any listeners, but is like your headline. So it's the space right under your name. And if you look at our team, you'll see most of them have, it's like a blend of who they are professionally and personally. So it might have their
Mhm.
title, but then one of my colleagues has, German Shepherd mom. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I get more people that reach out to me that want to talk about German Shepherds than my experience in the industry or as a recruiter. So like, that's all it takes,
Yeah.
people just want to make a
People are
connection.
people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, it's
It's
necessary.
interesting, when LinkedIn kicked off many years ago, I was, and even now there's like, I think there's generational gaps, right? I think LinkedIn is the, at least touted as the professional networking site.
Yeah.
Although there's speculation and there's peanut gallery folks that, LinkedIn's no longer what it was and this and that. Well,
Oh yeah.
okay, each their own, right? That's the nature of social. But I often look back I wish I had gotten more engaged then, but it goes back to my earlier point, working in the corporate world, there was almost this underlying undertone of not really, you don't need to be out there, right? That's not your job. That's not your role. So I think after that experience and been spending the last many years in more startup culture, which absolutely has been very much promoting, hey, get out there because it's free more. It's like swag. Why
Exactly.
weren't we doing swag back in the day, right? Like, talk about the best marketing campaign ever is just take a flight. How many new companies that you've never
Exactly.
heard of that are sitting next to you? And you're like, what an icebreaker, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly. I see your monogram fleece. Like, I know where you work, and yeah,
yeah,
you're so right. It's interesting. I read an article yesterday, and this really rang true, and it was like, personal branding and social media are so important that it's time to fire your intern and hire a VP. And it
yeah,
was basically the strategy of like how it's always been the intern job, or it's like the, you know what I'm saying, or the lowest rate, like, oh, you're fresh out of college, you can do our social media, and then branding just gets lumped with it. And this article was like, no, no, it's free.
yeah. The tides have turned. Like this is the channel you need to focus on, arguably more than any other, right?
Exactly. Like, and hire someone who can really do it the right way. Yeah. So and on LinkedIn, there's so many different ways you can share content and share ideas. I encourage my team, like, just start engaging, like spend 20 minutes scrolling and commenting and liking and forwarding, and warm yourself up, see what kind of topics you are attracted to. And then you kind of build your brand that way, like a little of
Yeah.
this, a little of that. So yeah, but there's going to be haters. You're going to learn lessons the hard
That's just the nature of that's life though, right? There's always haters. I'm with you though. I feel like there's, when I talk to people that are like, they always say, I know I need to get more, especially if you're happen to be on a free agent on the sidelines.
right.
I can't, and you know this more than anyone. There's a lot of folks. Unfortunately, this market, the freight market, has not been conducive for a lot of the success we at least saw COVID. No secret there.
Nope.
But with that comes, tighter times call for tighter budgets. Sometimes there's the headcount reduction, unfortunately.
Mhm.
What I'm seeing though is some of the older cats that I worked with back in the day that were in that cush role for 20 plus years, smooth sailing. All of a sudden, they're back out on the market, and they're like, hey, Chris, we haven't talked in a decade,
Yeah.
and it's like, I'm like, well, this is like, it just goes to reinforce the fact that you just never know when
Mhm.
your number's up at any employer, this.
Exactly.
And so why, my plight is to say I am always going to work at companies when it's a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Yeah.
But there's a myriad of reasons why, especially in startups, that things don't
Uh-huh.
work, and in corporate too, right? You can get whacked at any point. There's no secret to that.
Yeah.
So all the more reason to reinforce, though, your brand will follow you no matter who signs your paycheck. So why would you not invest in that as much, if not more than anything else?
Exactly. And
Right?
like I think, yeah, I mean, and that is something we've just put a lot of emphasis on is, connecting with humans. So you have to be a human to connect with humans. And
Yeah.
that's what, our business is built on, this idea of seeing someone, who are you behind your title? I don't need to know everything, but I know you have a son. Tell me how he's doing. What are you doing
Right.
with him? So they're just making that connection point. I see snow in your backyard. Where are you at? Is it cold?
Something, right? And I think again, I wear a commercial hat a lot these days, and have in the past few years. So sales is sales is sales, whether you're
Yep.
candidates, employers, software, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that goes back to like, that's where I think, and again, we've lost some of that. And again, I don't know if it's generational. I don't know, but I
Mhm.
do feel like that I am very adamant on the sales philosophy is people, they want to know you, they want to like you and trust you as a first step before they're willing to listen to you.
Yeah.
Charlie, I am almost getting a little depressed on just how bad sales outreach is getting. And I'm sure it applies in recruiting channels as well.
Yeah.
The pitch slap, right? And even the fakeness of like someone who engages on your content, but
Yeah,
like then you're like, it's a post you did 8 months ago, and it's like, is
exactly.
this your way of like trying to develop a rapport here? And
Yep.
then inevitably the pitch, right? Like it's just and again, maybe I'm old school, but I'm like, that's not, it's like dating, right? You gotta
Exactly.
take it slow. We're not trying to just get to know someone at a very high level, on a personal level.
Yep.
And if there's a connection and rapport there, that will incrementally over time, you can start to weave in a little bit more of like from a business partnership type of scenario. But
Exactly.
are you
Exactly.
seeing that too, though? I literally got it, and
Oh,
AI is only making it worse.
it's so bad. I mean, I get more Dear Mr. Saffros now than I
Yeah.
ever did. No, AI is making it worse. Like I saw you went to, and then it tries to fill in my college, and I'm like, well, it's just bad automation. But I mean, I do give personal branding a lot of credit for the way we built our business, and kind of what you were talking about earlier with the startup culture. We have always assumed that everyone who comes our way, whether you are in a position that you're looking for a job and you're sending us your resume, or you are, in a position where you're hiring and you're building out a team, like we consider everyone the same. Like we respect
Yeah.
you, we're going to take care of you, we're going to see you as a person, because what's happened over 15 years is that same person will become they'll be on the other side of the desk eventually.
You
And
bet.
yeah, I mean, it's usually someone who starts, I mean, not usually. A lot of times that's how we've, kept our best relationships. We got you a job and then you bring in us and
Mhm.
then we build relationships in your company. But a lot of times, like we're dealing with, C-suite hiring decision makers,
Yeah.
bullies, I'm just going to say it.
They
And
exist. Yeah.
and we do what we can to provide recruiting services and be cordial. And then, 2 years later, 10 years later, whatever it is, like they come to us with their tail between their legs and their resume. And so it's like just treat everyone with equal respect.
Don't burn bridges.
It
Yeah.
will all come back and we're all
Yeah.
connected, and it's all just dropping breadcrumbs until the timing is right.
100%. It's interesting because when I was younger, freight broker in earlier years,
Yeah.
I worked with a lot of other folks and other companies, and we were like kind of the front line worker bees.
Yeah.
And this is 25 years ago, and we've all, for the most part, I think, ascended in our careers
Uh-huh.
to levels of somewhat, leadership to some extent. And
Yeah.
it's just interesting how those chapters over the years we've kept in touch, friends, been in,
Yeah.
go to their weddings, and now they're in a position of influence or authority or decision making. And now it's like that dynamic is so cool, as for anyone listening, right? It's not
Yeah.
something you can. It takes time, right? And
Time.
Charlie,
Yeah.
we've been in this space forever.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen overnight. I think people are enamored with people that are like, you just send a quick, a message and you get a meeting. And it's like, yeah, but that's because that wasn't like magic. I've known
Exactly.
this person through, worked together 2 years ago. We competed 8 years ago. They were a customer, et cetera. It's like, it's the dynamics that have matured into a period now where it's a super cool dynamic of me. And I'm sure you too, right? Just,
Yeah.
so many people. It's just not, it's incredible.
Exactly. And it's all about, yes, I love to say like dropping those breadcrumbs and just building the relationships, making the connections. I'm not looking for any instant gratification. Like that
Right.
actually surprised me. But it is also this element of old school selling and luck and being at the right place at the right time.
Sure.
I had a client call this morning and he was just saying how he's never been so inundated by recruiting and staffing firms. And he's
Yeah.
like, I get 20 messages a week and some of them are so bad. And so I was like, well, why'd you pick me? Because you responded to a message I sent you. And mine was a DM on LinkedIn. And he's like, I
Yeah.
can tell you were a human. And honestly, it came in my inbox at the right time. And I was like,
Yeah.
great. Like
Well,
that's
and I'm sure that they, LinkedIn again. Let me look this person up. They see you everywhere. Like that's street cred, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So I'm again, I think you and I are both LinkedIn. Honestly, like I let my wife do all the other social platforms because I know how addictive they are. And
Yeah.
I think if I left, LinkedIn is like where I just focus everything professionally.
Because you
And so I don't get sucked in.
yeah, and you can justify it. It's like, oh, I'm scrolling, but it's
It's
linked
work.
on Saturday. I'm learning stuff. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it can get overwhelming. You're like, how am I supposed to know all this and
Yeah.
engage with all these people? But you gotta
It'd
keep
be a full-time job. I used to try to respond to everybody. And I think now I'm looking at like, there's only so many hours in a day. And man, I really want to, right? I'll get like students about to graduate, like, hey, I'm interested in your field. Would you ever? And I always do my very best to make time.
no.
Unfortunately, though, as they continue to pile up, I've got to weed out like
Yeah,
who's someone who's authentically asking me about career advice or anything. And again, this is not I expect anything return, right? I'm a pay it forward guy. It's always worked out for me. But I have to weed out those that have an ulterior motive of like, hey Charlie, I really love your content, and and then all of a sudden it's like you can tell right away. It's like,
show
wait
me.
for it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, it's coming.
It's
It's
coming. Yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah,
No, the bots. I mean, the whole notion of AI in my mind is like exactly what this gentleman said this morning. Like I stood out because he could tell I was a human. There was nothing fancy about my message. I wasn't trying to impress him by filling in,
yeah.
I'm impressed by your experience at blank. So there is the humans will rise and be even more needed just in different ways. And we will work alongside bots and bot like
Yeah.
technology and like I mean it's so interesting. But
It's
I
so much that now, again, we sell, my current role in the last few years, I've been in this optimization,
yeah,
automation, a lot of AI components.
uh-huh,
But, as you've heard me probably say, like I think there's a world that exists that we are working hand in hand, not of man versus machine, right? But just that harmonization and balance of let the machines, the calculators often say, let
yeah,
that do what it's good at, but free
yeah,
up time to do what we're good at, right? And then
exactly.
hopefully that message resonates with people when I try to tell them, because there's so much fear and angst and an array of emotions around this AI movement. And I think again, it's kind of like, what won't AI be able to do? And I I don't have the crystal ball, and I'm very
Exactly.
bullish on tech, but it goes back to like AI gone wrong. We're already seeing it, right? And you mentioned the let's just the wide net approach for whether it's recruiting or selling. And I got one the other day. It was just dear insert customer name here. Like it's just like
Yeah.
I don't even know. I almost wanted to post it, redact the person, and just call out how many things. Then they thought like I'm a software provider. They're like, we'd like to help you move all your freight. I'm like, well,
Oh, I get that all
a
the
lot of that, like it was just like this. You could pick this thing apart and critique it. And again, no disrespect to the person that sent it. Their
but
leadership, though, somebody I almost want to forward it to the boss and just be like, look, I just
yeah,
want to let this is what's going out from your team. Like,
mark it as spam. Like
I
I don't
want to know,
yeah, exactly.
But
It's
yeah, well,
I think it's all, I mean, this is your world, but like it's high touch, low touch. You have to prioritize, I don't work in the freight industry, but like, does a driver need a human more to get load detail updates or to negotiate the price before he accepts the load. And like
Right?
right now, probably negotiate the price. Who knows how that would be in the future? So, like, okay, that's where the humans spend the time, put the effort in, and then automate. He's, the loads, whatever, being delivered on time, like that. No one needs to call him and check, tell him that. So,
Awful. Yeah, I'm with you. I think if it, again, a lot of what I do involves numbers, right? Metrics, math, money, miles. You can just that's all numbers.
yeah.
So assuming that data is pretty high quality, which is questionable occasionally, but
Mhm.
let's assume that data starts to get a little bit more clean. When I sat in that freight broker role many moons ago, when I the transaction to book the load was often the quickest part. The
Mhm.
rest, out of a 30-minute call, which I'm bad, I'm a talker.
Yeah.
But the next 29 minutes were that lonely driver that's an OTR guy that hasn't talked
Right.
to a human, not a real conversation for maybe a week, 2 weeks on
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Man, that was the best part because you know who I'm calling next time, or I know who's going. And that's what I think. Hope people realize. Use these tools, these technical
Exactly.
tools, to give you that time back, and
That's
watch. And it's that human connection piece, right? And I know you know that as much as anyone that I know in this industry, that human element.
exactly, exactly. No, I learned about a company yesterday that robotics in hospitals, and it just makes so
Yeah,
much sense. It's like, why does a human need to go down to the pharmacy to fetch the two pills to bring back up to this room? Like, no, let the nurse sit with the patient and
that's kind of an important time if you're in the hospital. That human
exactly
connection.
like yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's coming. There's good and bad. We'll see.
Well, let's shift gears, Charlie, because again, everyone, I think that everyone's kind of the same question at these
Mhm.
conferences about the market and the uptick, and I know you're going to see it through the recruiting lens. There's some, going back to LinkedIn, there's definitely some names out there that are saying it's going to be. I think the term I heard is, the sniper season, something to that effect of like this is going to be a year where talent is reigns as king, and it's going to be a massive influx of interest from a lot of companies looking to seek talent.
Yeah.
I think that's perhaps right, but I think this market, the freight recession's over. It has a ripple effect on every aspect within that entire ecosystem.
Mhm. Mhm.
From a recruiting standpoint, just the overall talent acquisition.
Yeah.
What do you see? Are you seeing anything? What any predictions? And I hate to say that word because
Yeah.
we don't know. But what are you looking forward to into next year? What are you seeing as perhaps some trends that in the recruiting world?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I do feel like the media has been a bit of a broken record and nobody knows the future, but the whole idea of like we're going to come back and sniper season, like isn't that what we were saying a year ago? And it's just like this optimism, this hope, and we know it will come back, but I would say the hiring market is very reflective of, the transportation
Yeah,
market. And when shippers are more in control, employers are more in control, and
right.
it will switch to be the job seeker and then the carriers, eventually. So yeah, I think that it's an employer market. It's funny that you say the sniper market because I'd say the hiring, the lingo we're using now, we had the great resignation and then whatever, like
Oh
now
yeah.
they're calling it the great stay.
The great stay, quiet quitting. We've had quiet firing. I think I've heard it all now, right?
We've heard it all, we've seen it on TikTok, but yeah, the great stay is an interesting philosophy that we really try to like educate our clients on because no, we're not just going to, bring you unemployed people. And if we
Right.
do, there's probably a reason that we are introducing them to you because there's so much more to who they are than that gap on their resume. But that they need, the best performers, many of them are too scared to even apply to a job or
Yeah.
update their resume. And so it's this great stay where unfortunately, like there's not, a ton of raises and bonuses and, the end of the year cheer like we normally see, but there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
Um, and it's unfortunate. I think that is the overall mood with job seekers. And I think hiring companies, there's just there are some that are very bullish and they're the smart ones because they're going to get some great talent and be able to nurture relationships, while it's quiet. But I'd say a lot of companies have fear. And it's just
Right.
like, what if the end of 22, what if we haven't hit our low? Um,
Right.
what if we haven't hit the bottom of the market yet? Like they said all year, every month
Right.
is bottom. So yeah, there's still a lot of fear. And it's like until we start proving we're going up, I would say we are starting to see a lot of like niche leadership positions, which is really encouraging.
Hmm.
Um, we had a client we were talking to the other day that was telling us all about like a culture overhaul and how they really are recommitting to their people. And part of that was hiring two or three more people for their safety team. And
Okay.
like that was an interesting connection because she's like, we've been spending the last 2 years like focused on our culture, focused on retention. And what we realize is our people don't feel safe. And so we're hiring to fill that gap that came up through that employee feedback and our culture work. So lots of like interesting little situations like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, high demand for sales reps, no surprise. Hopefully that will start to flip and we'll at least see carrier reps in demand again.
Yeah, that's the, again, I get pinged from time to time about roles here and there that I have no interest. But again, some of it's going back to, the poorly crafted initial contact DM or email that missed the mark. It's the same. I get, the one that says we have a senior manager role open that we think you'd be a great fit, and I'm like, I what do you like? It's almost like it's like sales, right? Did you
Yeah.
take the 2 minutes of time
Yeah.
to just do I mean, a LinkedIn profile will tell you quite a bit. And so, but I just go back to I'm part of me's flattered because I know there's a lot of people out of work and I'm blessed and I'm never above any job. I'm
Yeah.
not. I've
Yeah.
started from nothing and tried to make something of myself, but I'm never so far removed from my roots that at any given point in time, the economy collapses, something you just don't know. So
Absolutely.
I think the other thing, Charlie, I wanted to kind of ask, you mentioned the sales roles. I think a lot of these people, what I see, I mentioned it earlier, some of these older folks I've met that have, highly seasoned experience, but
Mhm.
they've been at one organization for their entire career. And I think they assume when they transition their next that, I mean, comp, like, look, I get it. You're making 400 grand a year on a base salary for managing a P&L, right? Like, great. But the new market, and you would be the best person to ask. I almost have this fear, like, can you introduce me? And I'm like, well, I'm not a recruiter, but I can just assume that if your comp minimum expectation is something that is so unheard of, I think, in this current market that it's almost embarrassing for me to give you a reference.
Yeah.
Like, what do
Exactly.
you say to? Are you seeing that too? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe it's just people reaching out to me, but I feel like we
No.
gotta we gotta we gotta like level set and get back to reality of when you're back out in the market. No one does your future employer really care too much about what your former title and comp package. It may be just like that's the past, right? Like,
Exactly, exactly, and it was a different time. It's like,
yeah,
trading, like, you can't just that changed a lot, and
yeah,
there's so much yeah, I feel like there was this brokerage, I don't even want to say like heyday, but it was rightfully so. Brokerages were just
yeah,
booming and they
yeah,
created amazing comp plans. And, I think really what started to happen was the comp plans were designed for hunters. And then a lot
yeah,
of and then they kind of turned into account managers and it became really easy to grow revenue and earn high commissions. But yeah, I would say we are the bearers of bad news a lot,
yeah,
talking to that exact candidate. Like, I mean, a carrier rep or a carrier manager that's like bringing in 400 a year, those days are over, unless you want to take a risk on yourself and start your own agency
yeah,
50. But like, yeah, I mean, I think realistically, we will see a lot of good salaries. Right now, people are making lateral moves and people are
yeah.
even moving for less because of their situation or just their priorities. So it's not the time to like look for a job for a 20% increase. It's not going to happen unless you're in high demand.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to just it's leverage, right? And whether that's market-based leverage or the employee and that particular engagement between a potential employer and employee and
Yeah.
who's got leverage, who doesn't. So I think I'm trying to educate people that if you're on the sidelines, that has no bearing, in my opinion, on your overall worth. There's a myriad again of reasons that may have happened. There's an optic though. If you were good enough, they wouldn't have let you go, right? Like that's just human nature, right?
But
That's the way it is. But I
exactly.
don't know, like, I'm always trying to, again, bring a dose of reality to people that I don't know how to tell you this, but I don't this idea that you were the man or the woman that was the greatest thing ever,
Mhm.
that that is not in line with your current situation. So you may want to tone it down and not, just be a little bit more humble about how you
Yeah.
approach this. And
Yeah.
maybe like as you probably tell some candidates, just because if you're in a true dumpster fire, Charlie, right? And there's companies that are dumpster fires.
Mhm.
I try to go if it's that bad affecting your mental health and it carries over into your home and personal life, you need to get out of there.
Yeah, exactly.
And just because, but you can't necessarily try to hold out for the dream job because who knows if and when that comes around, right? But
Mhm.
again, how do you, Charlie, do you often tell people like, hey, there's some openings, and I'm not here to tell you like give it a shot, right? And maybe it works out really well, but if you're in a situation where the bills don't stop coming,
Right.
life still goes on, you got to get in touch with that humility side to say, okay, I'm going to take this role because
Mhm.
it's at least gives my family and I an income stream. And
Exactly.
then who knows what the future holds. But I feel like there's a reluctance, like that's beneath me, right? It's like,
And there,
is the paycheck beneath you?
right, there's a difference between like a director of sales accepting an independent contributor role
Right.
or not accepting it because they have been, I don't know, removed from actual selling for 15 years and they've only been
Yeah.
leading versus someone who can do it, they just don't
Yeah.
want to. So it's like if you
Right.
recognize that you don't have those skills or your skills aren't sharp, that's one thing. But if it's just below you and you don't want to get your hands that dirty and usually delegate those responsibilities, like, yeah, unfortunately, do you want to be employed or not right now? So
Right. And
it's
I'm sure you may have to even come down to that at some point when you're going back. It's like, I can't waste time if ultimately you're just not in the game. Like, or, at what
well,
point do you cut the cord and be like, maybe we're not a good fit for you?
exactly. And it's funny because so many of those, like, let's just call them like the $400,000 guys,
Yeah.
like we courted so many of them when they were at their peak. And
Right.
like, I just want to know, is there anything out there that, I could even make any more? And like, no, there isn't. Or you're going to start over just to get to the same point.
Right.
And then when they were let go or they were downsized, I mean, it's a business decision. We
Yeah.
all understand how they could be replaced with someone with a much lower comp plan that will do the same job. So
That's right.
and but it's when they came back to us like, oh, now I need a job. It's not like, let me, who's out there, I'll decide if I want to look, like, so.
It's all leverage again. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, tail between the legs, like you're in a very
Right.
different position. For me to say you're not going to make 400 in another company when you're employed is very different than me saying it when you're not employed.
Well said.
Yeah.
Charlie, how do you, kind of on a similar note, there's a lot of debate on job postings, right?
Mhm.
This idea that's always been taboo when it comes to comp, right? And let's be honest, like hiring, like, and again, people will tell you culture's important, manager. And I think the new generation believes that.
Yeah.
But a certain generation at the end of the day that's further along in life with mortgages and kids and all that, they're like, oh, that's great, but I gotta, I got kids to feed. So
Yeah.
comp is important. What are your thoughts on the job postings again, though? Do you feel that employers owe it to at least give a range versus the what are your comp expect? I mean, it's almost this back and forth that I always feel is awkward, and it's almost this like give and take of like, is this a high low game until we meet somewhere in the middle? What is your from your role? What do you tell? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's it's changed so much since I've been in
Yeah,
the recruiting game. Like, we can't ask someone what they earn or have earned anymore. We can ask in a very PC way, like, what would you like to make? What do you believe your value
right.
is for a position like this? And I might even be wrong because I haven't had those conversations for so long, but
Yeah,
it's going to change January 1st in Illinois, at least.
new
And I'm
law. Yeah,
not an expert, but yeah, our clients all know that we have to now show compensation, pay transparency, a range. It's always going to be a range unless a client has like a very, specific pay system. But the question is the range, 70 to 90, or is the range 70 to 200? And so we try, and technology doesn't make all that easy. So it's like not always the job poster's fault, because you could make 200 all in, but you're getting a 70,000 base. So what am I supposed to post to attract the right person who's not looking
right,
at 70K job? So
right.
whole like behind the scenes. And the other thing behind the scenes that I don't think a lot of people realize is companies are buying job postings way in
Hmm.
advance. So if a company, and I don't care who it is, if they bought job postings in the Great Resignation, they probably bought, in bulk packages on Indeed, on ZipRecruiter, on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
based still own those today and have annual contracts. So there are a lot of fake jobs out there too.
Ghost postings. Yeah, yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, if we have 100 jobs, we're going to make, we're going to take advantage of every single slot to get resumes. But that's the ghosting side of it. Like that job was never even real in the first place,
Yeah.
So it's technology. That's where it's just kind of like, and you see bots applying to bot posted jobs. I don't know.
I'm this is interesting because I wonder again with the wave of automation and AI and bots and GPTs, like at some point does it like I guess that's like there's pros and cons, but I feel like from your perspective and even mine, right? If I don't have that human element and that rapport and just that innate feeling humans get, like I feel like a recruiter that knows you have your clients that you've worked with for years. You kind of know their culture, you know the people well, and when you talk to a candidate as a human versus a bot or any other kind of automated fashion, you're probably going to get a level of insight to them and what incentivizes you, what motivates you, what drives you, what's your why. I
Exactly.
don't know that machines and AI are at a point, at least in my opinion, that you can extract that. But too many people are just lazy. They're just like, oh, then I'll just, it's almost like, well, show me you want this job. And as an employer, it's a two-way street. Show me this candidate matters, right? Like, and I think
Exactly.
that's only done in the human element, right? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't
No, I mean, would you accept a job without talking to a human at any point?
know.
Like, hey, I got a
I
$500,000.
wouldn't buy a car without test driving. It's the same
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
exactly the same thing. But I was at a LinkedIn event a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about a study, and I can't cite it because I don't remember where it came from, but
No worries. Yeah.
they were testing this idea of negotiating job offer salaries via human versus via AI. And what they found was the newer generation prefers negotiating with a robot.
Isn't
And
that
like
interesting?
that's, but then like that would totally turn you off, and like at your level, like, no, I want to show them, I want to read this person. I want to be able to like really lean into their body language. So I don't know. For me, it's one thing to like make a manicure appointment online and not have to talk to a human.
Right.
Another thing to like, yeah, I'll give you 60K, and I'm like, no, 70. And they're like, how about 65? I don't know. But
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
generation, that is what they prefer because they're like, I don't need a human for that. Get me a human for my first day orientation. Get me a human to tell me how great I am. I don't need a human to get the salary that I know is going to be this or this. So we
It's
got
so interesting. And again, I'm dating myself, but it's like that's just to me is so you want to roll the dice through automation until you get day one,
and then
and
you want
then find out if it's the good fit. Like who
Well, you
wins
want
in
a
that?
purpose. You want a
Yeah.
purpose, but you ask the robot what the purpose of the company is. Like, are they really going to help you connect? I don't think
Yeah.
so. So that's the weird thing, though, with all these different generations and all this like opportunity to automate. It's like,
Yeah.
where are you automating? Who is your audience? Did they accept it? And I don't know. I think our industry, people are retiring much slower, and I
Yeah.
think industry is still old school. I don't
It
think
is.
people want to deal with bots like they do in other, in a Silicon Valley startup.
Yeah, I
So
mean, if you're day trading and all that, like I get it, but like anything, like I said, I look at a lot of anything that involves numerics and numbers. There's an algorithm that can probably,
yeah,
at least on some level, help out with that. But again, we're talking about your a life decision, your next employment, your means of income. Again, I'm like, I saw an article the other day too that was a Stanford graduate, obviously smart guy, an MBA or something, and he was talking about he's used GPT so much that it's almost like cognitively he's declined because he doesn't have to think of the words because GPT he prompts it and he's like, so it raised another element of all
wow,
this of like, at what point do we just become dumber and lazier than we already are as a
exactly.
society? And that's scary, so
Interesting.
it's
And
going to be,
we're not seeing a ton of jobs that require AI specific knowledge because I don't think employers even know how to like, you just want someone who's used Chat GPT, or you want someone who's created an app with Claude or whatever. Like,
yeah.
and so it's just I will say I don't think AI is going to replace jobs, but I think people who know AI will replace people who don't.
And this industry, freight, trucking, brokerage, anything to do with our logistics ecosystem, I
Yeah.
think you're right. We're at this weird crossroads where there's a massive acceleration of tech.
Yeah.
And then you've got generational gaps though. So some are embracing it really like right out of the gate, especially younger. But then you mentioned that folks are actually like retiring as you may have expected for a lot of reasons.
Right.
But there's that gap of like old school and new school trying to kind of how do we mesh that together? And, from my position, I'm always looking at some older generations that are like, I don't know that I understand all this, and I'm not trying to ruffle feathers for my company, and I don't want to, I don't want my legacy to be I ruined the company for trying to adopt this. And then the counter argument is, well, your legacy is you're not making any investments in tech and automation, so your legacy maybe you were the reason that you got left behind, your company.
Exactly.
So it's a multifaceted conversation, and again, it's polarizing. But I don't think it's like it's like you're both right and you're both wrong, and it's like how do we again bridge those areas to make sure that again this applies in recruiting like
Yeah.
that's going to be a skill set that you need to have the level of familiarity, but do you need to be like coding algorithms and all like probably not.
No, that's
um
exactly.
and it even I saw an article about MBAs and consultants at the Ivies, like they're not in demand anymore because AI and stuff. They're like AI is gonna like what? And then the counter argument is like, yeah, but even consulting is sales, right? So yes, the AI can do the PowerPoint and all the quantitative aspects, but at the end of the day, a consultant has to go in there, present it, tell a narrative, and
Yeah.
ultimately the persuasiveness to get someone to sign a check, right? Like I don't.
We've had the opportunity to make huge multi-year contractual decisions online, and we don't. Like, I could probably go buy a huge account on LinkedIn with a couple clicks in my credit card and get all these licenses for my team, or I can talk to a human and be advised, like, and have a relationship when something comes up. That's not going to change.
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
hope not.
Are you going
No.
to Manifest?
I will be.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll see you there. But I'm really curious to see. I'm doing a panel there, and we were just meeting the other day to prepare and talking. Everyone, I'm curious what level of automation and AI maturity most people will have, because my panel fellow panelists seem to think like people who come to these sessions, like they're just looking to be prepared and educated, like they're doing nothing, and there's their pen and paper still. um,
Yeah.
but then there will also be companies that have full robotic fulfillment centers. uh, so I think that will be an interesting year, just like where are you in the adoption cycle.
Yeah, and that applies to every function and facet with every industry, I
Yeah.
assume. But what's your panel topic, Charlie? I'll definitely there. It's only going to be 6,000 people there, but I will
It's
try.
only gonna be 6,000. Come find me. My panel topic is really the importance of humans in an AI future.
I've done those panels. They are
Yeah,
super fun, and I
yeah,
think you and I are very like minded. Maybe again, it's generational. Maybe it's just having been in this game for so long, we've seen it all. So I think
exactly.
I don't know who the fellow panelists are, but I'd love to come by and just kind of hear
Yeah,
the various thoughts, right?
exactly.
But
Well,
super cool, super
yeah,
cool.
well,
Charlie, I think there's what do you see? Like I kind of alluded to this earlier. What are you telling candidates now that maybe we haven't touched on? Because again, it's the holidays, and there's I've been on the sidelines in my career. It's not great. I think there's some people that are kind of like hey, I'm giving up. There's kind of they're deflated, they're depressed, and I hate to see that during the holidays.
yeah,
What can they do? I'd love to. I mean, I have my opinions on what I think they should do. We're probably aligned in some ways. But as the holidays are coming and they're looking into kind of new year, new me, new start, career
mhm,
wise and otherwise, what are you kind of telling them to? What are the best couple key takeaways they should be doing now as they
yeah,
look into next year? And again, I think we've touched on a lot of it in some way or another. But if you have to be direct with them, what
yeah.
are you telling them?
Um, I think there are two schools of advice that I could give, and it would be based on like how long have you been unemployed and what's your general like motivation and energy right now. There's part of me that would say use this time to plan. Do research, figure out what is your strategy for networking, finding new jobs, connecting with people, building your personal brand. I know a lot of people that are in between jobs now. It's like, now I will finally put a picture on my LinkedIn profile now that I'm unemployed and I have
There's
the
a good start.
exactly. So I would say, and as you're planning, there are those people who are going to get lucky in the next 2 weeks because they send that intro message and that CEO is working on Christmas. And so there's
Yeah.
opportunity. I'm not going to say I encourage it, but there's opportunity to be like, I saw that you were online on Christmas, so I thought I'd send you a direct message and connecting that way, whatever it is. So there's a window of opportunity to stand
Mhm.
out when, there's a lull. But then I would also say if you're newly finding yourself unemployed, nothing's going to happen in the next 2 weeks that won't still be there. Reset, figure out what you want to do. Take a very hard look at your skills. I don't really care anymore. Well, I do care, but the world is not going to care soon enough where you worked, what the name of the company was, what
Yeah.
city it was in, what even the title was. Like, the world's going to care about your skills. So you either, have been a carrier rep for 2 years, that's great, or you know how to price, flatbed, and you know how to
Yeah.
negotiate, and you know how to plan a flatbed, specialized route. So those are the things people are going to be looking for, is those skills. Not to mention, are you responsible?
Yeah.
Do you have a heart? Do you collaborate with other people well? But can you work, autonomous? So the soft skill, hard skill is where I really encourage people to like take a look, create a list. That is your selling point on your profile, on your resume, your interview talking points, and your skills align with whatever they're looking for. And that's how you go about your search. And that's part of your plan that you work on while you're laying low this week.
Yeah, I think there is. I'm going to be with my in-laws, so they're great
Perfect.
people, great people. But I may be perusing LinkedIn. I think that people assume like there's that moment of like, do I bother them? They're with their family. It's a holiday. I get that, right? And then, but there's always the chance you see the green light on, and you
Yeah,
may just, but don't be this. Don't do the pitch slap. Just hey,
exactly.
just come, just be. It's brevity is key. I tell people. No one wants the novel on your first. Like if I have to scroll, probably game over right out of the gate. But just and that personal connection. So maybe like I said, it's always the little things. You went to Charlie. You were in Chambana. Who were you in Chambana? It's like just like like Illinois, something,
I mean,
something.
I know. And
Um, but
planning
I
help.
just don't see the younger people like. And again, I don't want to generalize or stereotype, but I feel like that have we lost the art and the skill of that finding that just basic human connection and automatically fast forwarding to automation tools that I want to show you everything who I am right now. It's like no.
Yeah. I don't want to like get in this conversation because I don't know anything, but it's like the whole blockchain,
Oh
right?
yeah.
That whole concept of like we are just our profile. And
Hmm.
someone was saying yesterday, like, how great would it be if our Uber scores were on LinkedIn? Because that is a third party judgment of how you show up as a human,
Hmm.
but I can't fake it. Like, these are scores from actual drivers that have serviced me, and it's being fed in from Uber or Lyft or whatever. And it's a silly concept, but it's kind of like, oh, that is, how else do I validate that you are as great as you're telling me you are?
I've seen hiring managers, and I've done this, right? The interview is we're going to go out to lunch, right?
Oh, yeah, love that.
Let's see how you treat the server, right? Let's see do you have manners or your personal skills when it comes to complete stranger, especially if it's sales, right? It's
That's
the best salespeople I've seen were in the hospitality or service industry like that because that's what they do, right? So whenever I see someone like everyone assumes like I don't have any freight broker experience. You've been Chicago in the holidays. You go out to eat and you see somebody that's really good at their job. And I'm
yeah.
sitting there going, I don't care if you didn't go to college. I don't
Mhm.
care if you don't have any freight experience. You have an innate gift of understanding people and the human mind and whether it's pleasing them and servicing them. And I don't know. I think that's a raw skill
Wait,
and I love it.
oh my God. My favorite story in that context is I was traveling to Charlotte for XPO in the way, way early days. And I just had the loveliest rental car rep. Like,
Yeah.
this woman just touched me, and I ended up getting her a job at XPO maybe
Awesome.
2 months later. She worked there for years. Now she owns her own trucking company. And
Awesome.
she was the budget rent a car woman that just had charisma and connected and cared why I was renting a car in a foreign city. But like, yeah, it's like I'm always looking for the server that's got what it
A
takes,
little extra. Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
also
Go
dates.
ahead.
Like, if I went out on a first date and you're rude to the server, like, that's when I'm going to say I'm going to the bathroom and not come back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
So
I
it's
think I hope employers get that too, because I think there's this notion traditionally that's like your resume, and of course LinkedIn is the new resume in my mind, but like pedigree, right? Where did you go to school? there is an optic of status and pedigree and who's, and I think that, and I've been at some companies that is if you didn't go to XYZ school, you're just completely out of the running. And I'm like, this is a sales role. And going back to your, the rental car example, like,
Yeah,
this person may look good on paper, but like, have you talked to them? And they're going to be making cold calls. Like, I don't care where they went to school. This probably isn't going to work out well, right?
right.
Like, I
Yeah.
hope that changes.
No, the truth of it is it's easy to find people with keywords and filters. So
Yeah.
if I'm looking for people from Stanford, it's easy for me to find them, but I'm not going to know what kind of person they are from their profile. And that's where it's like, yeah, how will we ever know if humans or Uber ratings are not involved?
That's right. I think you might be onto something, Charlie.
Oh, right.
I don't, and I'm sure that I think Uber is a great example because the rating there is that, because you're in a vehicle with a stranger. So how, that's,
But I feel like I've got like a good Instacart rating. I'm
I'll
nice.
say it applies in other areas, right? We rate everything, right?
On DoorDash, I don't know. My kids get DoorDash sometimes, so I can't vouch for our rating there. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. It's like, what do other people think of you beyond the recommendations on your LinkedIn profile that you asked them for and wrote them one so they'd give you one? Like, it's all
Yeah. I wonder if, like, you look at some of these websites like the G2s, but there's also, like, in the sales world, right? It's kind of like anonymous, but you can kind of like, I think it's complex because there's privacy issues and slander and libel issues, right?
yeah,
Legal.
right.
But I'd love to see, like, it's so hard, and you know this more than anyone. Like, you take a chance on a candidate, they might sell themselves really well to you, and you're
Hmm.
like, this is a great individual.
Oh yeah,
And then all of a sudden, like, they turn out to be something different, right?
yeah,
And when it comes to the actual, like, getting in the door, and once they're there, it's like,
yeah.
Charlie, I'm sure you've gotten these calls, right? They sounded,
Oh,
we had such high hopes,
exactly.
and it didn't work out. But I think that goes back to, like, I am hopeful that there's more of a holistic view. And you look at some of the universities now that have, pivoting away from the traditional Ivies and saying there's a lot of other
Yeah,
great schools that are looking for people more holistic. And not everyone has the privilege and the ability on a lot of levels to kind of
right.
have been able to have I won't say silver spoon, but like, you've definitely had privilege and other advantages than a lot of others that, again, the server that didn't have enough to go to school and is just, but they're a hustler, right? And if sales is the new, is in demand now, and I don't think that ever goes,
No.
fluctuates, but it never goes. I mean, that's revenue and growth. You got to have it.
I haven't ever had a company say, if you can bring us someone with no non-compete and a book of business, we're not interested. Like,
Right.
everyone, it's like, oh, if they can create revenue, then we can hire more ops people after we see the revenue. But yeah, it's a gamble.
Yeah.
But there's also a very short leash right now, which is just, it's mismanagement of expectations in this
Yeah.
market.
This is like again, if there's more time, I'd love to
I
see.
know we could get
You opened up another can of worms there with some other topics that I'm like, oh yeah, this is another completely, like, different tangent we could go on.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to block up your entire day before the holiday. But Charlie, what didn't we discuss today that you think would be? And I know you do these all the time, but, like, again, you're probably like, if you're like me, it's like my brain's like, I think we talked I don't know, but
We
anything
talked
else?
about that.
You mentioned non-competes. I wasn't
Mm,
any predictions on the non-compete, because the fallacy of, oh, Charlie's got a book of business which automatically comes with her, and then they're like, does that even exist anymore? I think that's a fallacy of all fallacies.
it really is. It's like, it doesn't even matter if you have the non-compete or not. Who can bring business over a weekend? Like, that
Right,
just doesn't happen. So
right.
I don't know. Get Matt Leffler on and ask him what he
I know,
thinks.
Matt.
Of
Yeah.
it.
I
I'm
think
like,
we'll see. I think that, thankfully, I think the courts are starting to realize. Back in our early days, I remember the handcuffs were like, Charlie, if you leave us, you can't work in this industry within 500 miles for the next
right.
8 years. It's like, what?
Just saw, this is non-related but kind of interesting, that California, maybe it's Jan 1 or maybe it's current, they are no longer requiring a bachelor's degree for like government positions.
Yeah,
So like, that's such a great move, to your point earlier. Like, they're recognizing the talent within, and they're recognizing, like, we're not going to be able to hire a diverse, underrepresented population if everyone needs to have a bachelor's degree. It
right.
just, so it's little things like that that people just need to be thinking of, and inclusivity and treating people like humans. And I don't know. We got to do it
That's
together.
your brand. You of all people, right? And there's different, and even in the recruiting world, right? We have different personalities that see things differently, and
Yeah.
some have. I mean, again, we know who we're talking about, and there's a lot of like, again, there's a multitude of different folks in this space, but you definitely can see a compare and contrast of the warmth of Charlie and kind of the human aspect, and then others that may be a little more, I don't know, gung ho or. And again, I'm not saying it's not right or wrong,
Right.
but for candidates and employers, that some will align better with that mentality and that mindset, and others may see you as kind of more of like their style of person.
Like the Brene Brown to the Tony Robbins or something,
Yeah,
right?
right, exactly.
I
Either
like,
one.
yeah, I'm gonna go with
Well,
that.
cool. Well, Charlie, we've been going for a little over an hour. I love talking to you. I'll see you. Any other conferences you got coming up in the early? Are you going to BGSA? Do you ever go to that one?
I'm not going to BGSA.
No,
One of these days, are you going to be there?
I will be.
I great.
Ben Gordon is great, and I love and when you tell someone that Palm Beach in the middle of January like could be an option, I'm like, yeah.
I know.
Vegas sounds good, and then I think I've got we do a lot with the TCA and ATA, so that I think the TCA one is in March in Phoenix. So again,
Okay.
for Midwestern folks, like that's a selling point.
Exactly. I'm going to TIA, maybe
TI,
San.
I'm going to go to TIA, I think this year.
That's back in San Antonio.
Yep.
TMS in Austin. So yeah, the calendar's filling up, but
No.
keeping some options open.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, I look forward to seeing you at Manifest, if not earlier. And I don't know how we've never crossed paths in Chicago. Like maybe we have. It's
At
like
an airport. We've crossed past an airport
airports. Yeah,
before.
yeah,
Yeah. So I
yeah.
know we'll see each other one of these
We
days.
will. Well, listen, you and Chad and the boys enjoy the holiday, and equally, if not more important, enjoy your self-care time.
Thank you.
I think you're starting a trend here of everyone wants to do it. It's like, Charlie, tell us how we make it happen.
Exactly. All these wives and women are going to be like, she went away by herself. I want that. I don't even
Right?
a spa day. I'm like, I just want silence,
Silent.
and a bed to myself. So
Yes.
I will let you know how it goes. I'll be refreshed by the time we get to Vegas in February.
Yes.
Yeah, my pleasure though. Always a great time chatting with you.
You bet, Charlie. Thanks again for the time. And yeah, for everyone tuning in, if again, if you don't know Charlie, I don't know there's many people on the face of the planet that may not that don't know Charlie to one degree or another. Reach out, and we've talked a little bit about some of the things today that whether you're on the employer side or the candidate side, looking for take what she says into the utmost consideration, because I can tell you, Charlie's been doing this again for 15 years, if not longer. She's an expert in her field, and I think she's, like I said, if your messaging to her is not salesy and spammy, then I think there's a high probability when she gets time that she would probably be willing to at least respond. And she has a team of amazing people over at CS that would be glad to probably help you out as well in your next adventure, right? So take advantage.
Yeah, I love the closing pitch. Thank you.
You bet. All right. Well, thanks again for everybody. Happy holidays, and we will see you in 2025. Thanks again.